Every year for Oogie Boogie Bash, our friend group tries to come up with really unique costumes. This year, our group decided to be a giant Disney pin lanyard, and it was up to my husband Rob and I to pull that off. Step one was to figure out the scale of the costume, so we grabbed some Barbies, a Disney pin, and a lanyard to figure out exactly how big we wanted our costume to be. Once we figured out the scale of our costume, Rob spent hours and hours on his computer taking these tiny Disney pins and trying to scale them up and keep the same amount of detail. This video is making it look like the design process was really easy, but it was actually very complicated. Because when Rob scaled up these very small pins to be very large, a lot of the details did not come through. So even though he started with the pins, he basically had to redraw each of these designs from scratch. Once that design process was done, it was time to actually cut out the pin pieces using our laser engraver and a sheet of chalkboard. Using the handy laser engravers that we keep in our garage, we were able to cut out the outline of each of the D pins and then lightly engrave the artwork from each pin icon that Rob hand paints later on. Then the next step was to use masking tape to cover the park icons on each pin. After all the icons were safely covered, we had the perfect blue spray paint to spray paint the D portion of each of the pins. Once all the Ds were spray painted blue and had fully dried, it was time to peel off the masking tape, and then it was time for Rob to start the hand painting process. And I already know exactly how talented my husband is. He can literally make anything, but it was truly amazing watching him hand paint these pins. He spent a lot of hours rotating the pins through different coats of paint and layers of colors, and he did an amazing job finishing each of these 5 pins perfectly. All of the pins took a long time to paint, but the 2 that took the longest were Walt and Mickey because there were so many detailed black lines, and the castle because he had to keep switching back and forth between different colors. Once he had finally finished the painting, then the final touch on the pins was the silver outline to make them look metallic. To make the pins look like they had metal around the outside, we used our laser engraver to cut a thin outline for each pin out of a shiny metallic plastic. And once each outer layer was finished, Rob took a very tiny paintbrush to paint a layer of glue onto the plastic and then attach it onto the hand-painted pin. And to make sure the glue set properly, we used clothespins and left them to dry overnight. All 5 of the pins turned out perfectly, but this was only the first part of our costume that needed to be made. We also needed to make a pin lanyard, pin backs, and figure out how to attach all these parts and pieces so that we had costumes and not handheld props. But to see the finished pieces and design, I will unfortunately have to send you to part 2 because there just isn't enough time left in this video.